Okay, welcome council, welcome staff, and welcome the members of the public to our Monday, February 1st council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7:01 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. If I can ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Kaylin, please.
Every time you do this.
Okay, thank you, Kaylin. Ms. Compo, can you put your video on just for a moment, please, if you would? So on behalf of council and the staff, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you back as our clerk. You've been off for a year under maternity leave. You certainly picked the right year in regards to COVID. It was certainly a challenging year, but I know you kept updated in regards to all our council meetings and our day-to-day operations in regards to what was taking place. So on behalf of council and staff, welcome back as the clerk of the Township of South Glengarry.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So Kaylin, on behalf of council and staff, we want to say thank you for filling in the position as clerk in Kelly's absence as her maternity leave. You certainly came into a challenging year with COVID-19, the pandemic that's continuing going on, but you certainly filled the position quite well, and we want to take this opportunity to say thank you, and we wish you all the best in your new position back in the county department. So thanks very much for everything you've done. Okay, number 3 will be the approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have a number of items that have been requested to be pulled into other business from information only. Those items being number 1, holiday shopping event recap. Number 2, the letter from the Glengarry Fencibles Trust. Number 4, the letter regarding automatic speed enforcement. And number 6 being the memo from South Nation Conservation.
Okay, thank you. Any other additions from other members of council? Not hearing none, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, number 4, any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on a matter to be dealt with in closed session.
Okay, thank you. So noted. If you can send your form in tomorrow morning, that would be great. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council of the Township of South Glengarry held on January 18, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the minutes of the public meeting of the council of the Township of South Glengarry held on January 18, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. So presentations and delegations, planning fees comparison, Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of my presentation this evening is to explain to council the current land use planning application fees that we have in place and compare them to the other townships within the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, the City of Carmel, and the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. So I'm just going to share my screen so I can start the presentation. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Perfect, thank you. So the reason to review fee schedules in the municipality is our original comprehensive planning fee schedule was created in 2007. We did have a fee increase in 2009. In 2014, we had a few fees that were increased, but a majority stayed the same as what they were in 2009. And in 2015, we added a fee for the processing of communication towers, primarily being cellular towers and high-speed internet towers, as well as green energy applications, specifically for the solar farms that we have in our municipality. In 2017, fees were reviewed, but no increases were made as per council's direction. And most of our current fees have been in effect since 2009 and 2014, as I've stated. You'll see in my presentation that our fees are low and outdated compared to our neighbors. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to increase the fees, but I feel it's administration's job to keep council aware of what our neighbors are charging for fees, making sure that we're competitive. And one of the reasons too is we want these applications to be done on as much of a cost recovery basis as possible. If not, tax dollars from taxpayers are being used to pay for other land use planning processes. So I'm going to get into the review and the type of fees. So in South Glengarry, these are the list of the application fees that we process on a regular basis, or the applications, I should say. Official plan amendments, zoning amendments, removal of holding, temporary use bylaws, severances, minor variances, site plan control, plan of subdivisions and condominiums, part lot control, which is a form of a severance within a subdivision, zoning compliance and work order letters, cash in lieu of parkland, where developers provide cash when creating new lots, as opposed to allocating or dedicating parkland to the township, communication towers, as I mentioned, cell towers and internet towers, and green energy projects, which generally are solar farms. So I'm going to start with official plan amendments. You'll see on this chart that South Glengarry's current fee is $1,000. North Glengarry's is $2,500. North Stormont is $1,500. South Stormont and North Stormont both have a higher fee if there is a joint application that has an accompanying zoning amendment. So you'll see they're in the $2,000 or $2,500 range. South Dundas's fee is $750. But you'll notice here that it says application fee plus any additional fees. The reason for the additional fees is because they have a consultant and they charge out the additional fees that the consultant charges, or the hours that are accumulated to complete the process. In North Dundas is $2,100. And in their case, if you have a joint official plan amendment accompanied by a zoning amendment, it's $3,300. And in Cornwall, it's $3,850 plus $150 per hectare. And then you'll see the fees for the Raisin Region Conservation Authority being $700 and $23.95 for major. In this case, you'll see that the RSCA, who's reviewing the application and not processing, and not writing the full reports are actually charging more than the municipality. So moving on to zoning bylaw amendment fees, here you'll see that we're $1,200. North Glengarry, North Stormont, and South Stormont are $1,500. Cornwall is $5,020 plus a charge per hectare. Raisin Region is $370. South Dundas $750, again with additional fees to cover the cost of the consultant. And then in North Dundas, there is a fee for a standard application, which is $2,000. Aggregate application is when there's a pit or quarry. And they charge more if an individual has moved forward with establishing a use or have built without a permit. And that's basically to penalize them for not receiving the approvals in advance. For removal of holding, we're $500, $300 for North and South Stormont, $650 for North Dundas, $2,300 for Cornwall, and then the RSCA is $370. The municipalities that don't have a fee is because they don't use the holding symbol in their zoning bylaw. So they're not obligated to charge a fee if they don't need to. For a temporary use bylaw, we're $500. North Glengarry is $750, followed by $1,500 North Stormont. South Stormont is $1,100. South Dundas is $650. North Dundas is $1,050, and Cornwall is $700. You can see they're all over the place there. And then severances. Severances would be one of the most common applications that we would process. You may recall in my summary I provided you at our last council meeting, we had processed 30 applications in 2020. Our current review fee is $200. Now we charge that fee only as a condition of provisional approval, meaning that we assist the applicant in advance of filing. They file with the United Counties. The United Counties will approve or refuse the application. If the application is approved, this is when we charge the fee. Most of the other townships actually charge the fee up front before they assist, simply because of the amount of work that's involved by the municipal planner to walk them through the process and assist them with the application. So again, in our case, ours is $200, followed by $750 in North Glengarry, $600 in North Stormont, $400 in South Stormont for a new lot, or $350 for a lot addition. North Dundas is $840. Their lot additions are $630. South Dundas is a $500 fee, and Cornwall would be $1,925 for new lots, $1,650 for other would be like lot additions. You can see in this case, the Raisin Region Conservation Authority's fee is $460, which is again higher than ours. So I'm just going to move on now to minor variances. This is another very common process in our community. Last year, we processed 42 minor variance applications. That was a lot for South Glengarry. That was the highest we've processed in many, many years. Again, you'll see our application fee is $400, followed by $500 in North Glengarry. North Stormont is $550. South Stormont would be $550 if residential, with a higher charge for $650 in commercial, industrial, others. Cornwall has a minor charge of $580 with a major charge of $2,250. And in South Dundas, it would be $500 plus additional fees simply because of the consultant. And in North Dundas, you'll see there's $630 for residential, $840 for commercial, $1,100 if you've proceeded to build without a permit and require the minor variance after the fact. And the Raisin Region Conservation Authority's review fee is $370. So site plan control varies a little bit throughout the United Counties as well. Our fee is currently $750. The reason for our fee being $750 is because we registered the site plan control agreement on title. We watch kind of where during the stage of construction to see when we should be registering it. And sometimes we don't register it right away because you could have situations where you suspect that maybe there'd be minor changes during the construction. And we want to register only once due to the cost. And we typically want to register the approved one or an as-built one if there was slight variations. To register a site plan control agreement is in the $530 range, and our application fee is only $750. So you're going to see in North Glengarry, they charge $1,000 for residential, plus 2% of the value of the construction of the facilities, and non-residential is $2,000 plus 2% of cost of construction of the facility. North Stormont is $1,500. South Stormont is $250 plus $60 per hour, which is minor. They don't have an agreement for every application. And then they have $1,000 for initial review for major agreements, which would be primarily your non-residential or multi-residential, plus your $60 per hour. And the reason why they do a per hour rate is because it covers the cost of the employee processing and preparing the agreement. South Dundas, they have $1,500 plus securities. Again, it's because they have a consultant involved. In North Dundas, their residential fee is $105 per dwelling, but a minimum of $500 to a maximum of $2,600. Every other type of application would be $2,100, or a minor would be $950. And then in Cornwall, you're going to see $1,800 plus $350 per hectare. Again, in Raisin Region Conservation Authority, they review these types of applications, and they have a range of fees depending on the nature of the application. So now we'll get into plan of subdivisions and condominiums. So in South Glengarry, we charge $1,200 per file, basically. And what that $1,200 does, it's to assist in covering my time to help the applicant prepare the notice, hold the public meeting, as well as prepare the conditions, bring the staff reports to council, and following your draft plan approval, you then also prepare the subdivision agreement. So a lot of work goes into subdivisions for that amount of money. In North Glengarry, for condos, they do $100 per unit, or for draft plan of subdivisions, they do $75 per residential lot. In North Stormont, they do $75 per lot with a minimum of $1,000 and a maximum of $2,000. And they also have an additional charge for preparation of the agreement, simply because the amount of time that goes into the agreement. Plus, they ask for a deposit to cover all other fees that are associated to the agreement. You often have a lawyer that will take a look at the agreement, and you may be working with an engineer as well for peer reviews. So that portion, that deposit helps covers those costs. And their condominium fees are $75 per unit. To continue with subdivisions and condos, South Stormont is $2,500 for draft plan, $1,500 for their agreement plus deposits, and South Dundas would be $2,500 and $1,500, which is the same as South Stormont. In North Dundas, the condo is $150 per unit with a $10,000 deposit. That $10,000 deposit is going to assist with the professionals in the review. And for subdivisions, your draft plan application starts at $2,100 and increases as high as $10,500 if there were to be a subdivision that's 250 lots or more. And then in the city of Cornwall, they start at $2,200 for a condominium fee plus $180 per unit. And if you're doing a draft plan of condominium conversion, which an example of that would be if you have an existing apartment building and you're converting it into a condominium, their fee is $4,130 plus $180 per unit. And for a plan of subdivision, it starts at $150 plus $350 per hectare. Again, the Raisin Region Conservation Authority has a range of fees depending on the nature of the type of development, and they would charge accordingly. So an amendment to site plan control. Most of us charge an amendment. If you have an existing agreement, that agreement's been registered on title, you want to come back and maybe do an addition, you want to amend your parking, you might have situations where you're changing grading and drainage because of different features that need to be amended on the site. All of those examples would be a reason to trigger site plan control. And our application fee is $500, which is the same as North Stormont. South Stormont is the $250 plus $60 per hour. Again, that's to help cover their costs for the agreement. And then in South Dundas is $750, North Dundas $600. Cornwall is $1,500 plus $300 per hectare. And our RCA is a 50% surcharge. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure exactly how that surcharge is applied. And then part lot control exemption. Again, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, basically that's a way of severing a lot within a plan of subdivision. Very common when you have a semi-detached that's constructed and you now want to create a legal lot line through the center of that semi-detached to allow each unit to be sold independently. So in our case, our application fee is $500. And then you'll see in North Glengarry's case is $250 per bylaw plus legal fees. So it costs money for the lawyer to register the bylaw, which is the same in North Stormont. And in South Stormont is $800. South Dundas would be $300. North Dundas is $300 plus your legal fees. And in Cornwall, $16.50 plus $200 per lot that's created. And then a review fee from the Conservation Authority of $500. Zoning compliance certificates, what they are is a letter that's produced when we receive a request from a lawyer, usually at the time of a property being bought or sold. And the letters typically come in from the buyer's lawyer wanting to know zoning compliance, if there's any work orders against the property, really to protect the buyer, to make sure that they are not purchasing a property that has any surprises. So we currently charge $50 for the letter. And then you'll see in the other townships, they range from 60, 50 in North and South Stormont, South Dundas is 60, North Dundas is 80. They do have an expedited rate of $100 if you expect it in 2 business days. I know in our case, our policy is we can guarantee the letter within 10 business days. And then Cornwall is $650. And there's no charge for the Conservation Authority for this because they would never receive this type of request. Cash in lieu of parkland. Council's going to be very familiar with this, both in terms of when we create a new lot through a severance process, we charge a $1,000 parkland fee. The $1,000 parkland fee has been in place, I know, since Charlottenburg Township, since the early to mid 90s. So that fee has not changed for many, many years. One thing I didn't identify on this slide on purpose, just because it gets more complicated, is when we do cash in lieu of parkland for plans of subdivision. Sometimes we have subdivisions where we simply don't want the land. It's not a great location, and we'd rather the dollars to be invested into other areas or municipality to improve existing parks. A recent example would be the 5-lot plan of subdivision that was created along Tyatown Road. There'd be no need in that case to actually ask for parkland because there would be very little land that you would want to, or very little land that you could take that would be of any value. It would be too small to build a park. So in that case, you would prefer cash in lieu, and then in hopes that someday we can add improvements to the Glenmalter Park, which would be the closest park nearby. So as I mentioned in South Glengarry's case, when we do a severance application, it's $1,000 per lot. Same in North Glengarry. Not applicable for North Stormont because the information was unavailable at the time, and the employees I was asking were unsure. South Stormont is $1,700 per residential lot. South Dundas is 2% or 5% of the value of the land. The reason for the difference is because 2% is for non-residential, 5% is for residential. North Dundas charges $3,500. They recently changed their fees at their last council meeting in January. So it went, it had a big increase. I believe it went from $2,000 to $3,500 per lot. They also have a bylaw for cash in lieu of parking. And I'll explain, and Cornwall does too. You'll see it's $1,500 per space. What cash in lieu of parking is if you have businesses in your downtown core that cannot provide sufficient parking spaces for that type of business or use, cannot meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw, they can apply for a minor variance to reduce their required parking. However, they're then obligated to pay for cash in lieu of parking. And those dollar values are then utilized to assist the municipality in maybe public parking spaces, enforcing public bylaws, things like that. And then of course, the RSCA does not have that simply because they don't receive this type of fee. So for communication and cell towers, we charge $1,000. You'll see $1,000 is very standard, with the exception of North Dundas being $1,200 and South Dundas being $250. Green energy projects, ours is $1,000 as well. North Stormont is $850 per $1,000 value of construction for wind turbines. And then you'll also see a calculation here for South Stormont in terms of kilowatts, which would be primarily for their solar farms and as well as for wind turbines, sorry. South Dundas currently doesn't have a fee, and North Dundas is projects that are less than 10 kilowatts are $100, projects greater than 10 and less than 1 are up to $400, and projects greater than 1 would be $3,000. City of Cornwall doesn't seem to have a fee for this, but I suspect they're not faced with these types of applications being an urban area. So I'm getting to the end of my presentation. So staff recommends to council to consider increasing the fees. As I mentioned to you previously, it's been a long time since our fees have been increased. They're reviewed all the time by staff. I work with our neighboring municipalities to see what they're doing, what they're charging. In January of this year, North Dundas just increased their fees. And in the fall of 2020, North Glengarry increased their fees. And in December of 2020, South Dundas increased their fees. And in conversations with South Stormont, it was determined that they are not charging enough to help with cost recovery for staff's time. So they may be looking at a new fee increase as well. So if council's interested in a fee increase, what we would do is we would recommend fees that would be reasonable and comparable to our immediate neighbors, being North Glengarry and South Stormont. I don't think it's fair all the time to look at the City of Cornwall fees. I think their development is different. Not only that, I don't want us to be more competitive than our immediate neighbors. And if council's willing, I would recommend to prepare a new fee bylaw that will only come into effect within a couple of months. And the reason for that is simply to provide sufficient notice to the public. For example, I'm working with, I would say, approximately 5 individuals right now that are talking about filing different applications. Those discussions are happening based on the current fees. I think it's very unfair if I don't give them a heads up and, surprise them and say, oh, the fees changed on such and such a date. So if council was considering the fees, I would like it to, maybe come into an effect April 1st or May 1st, just really to give people the chance to file under the current fee schedule. And that's really all I have for this evening. I look forward to your feedback. If your feedback is not do anything, that's fine. That is council's decision. Again, it's just really administration's responsibility to make you aware of what we currently charge and what revenues what you could be charging to increase revenues to offset costs in the planning department. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haley. If you can go back to full screen, please.
Sure.
Thank you. I just wrote down a couple of comments that I wanted to talk about. One is exactly Cornwall. I don't think we should be comparing to Cornwall, as it's a different population and they have a lot more, I guess, to offer in the city versus the municipalities in the counties. But the other one I was going to talk about was North Dundas. They're the northern part of our county, and they compare to Ottawa, probably with a lot of their numbers. So I would certainly not take them into consideration when we're doing that. But I agree with you. More South Stormont and North Glengarry would be our comparables in regards to that. I do like the one, and I guess I never thought of that in the past, and in respect that we don't have that charge at this point, but the one in regards to building without a permit. I do like that fee. I think people should be penalized. I don't think it should be taxpayers picking up for somebody that decided to build without a permit. In today's day, everybody knows they need a permit to build anything over 10 by 10. So I think there should be a fee for that one. That's my personal opinion. But I guess the other thing is, if you do come back with a report, is there any way between you and Mr. McDonald, can you bring us an average of what our total revenue would be in respect of all the fees that we do charge on an annual basis? Just so we have that comparable to know what we are getting in revenue and what our charges are for your departments. Maybe if that, we can look at that at some point, but I'll open it up to comments or questions at this point. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Joanne, thank you very much for your report. It's good to see where we are and compared to our neighbors. I don't really have a problem with where we're at, as long as it's not too, I'd like to see what we're pulling in versus the costs. I feel like the province mandates that we have to have a planner and a building inspector and stuff like that. So I feel like that's already baked in to the tax base in a sense. But one thing I would, if council does choose to increase the rates to be more in line with our neighbors, I would like it to take effect at the end of the year and give as much notice as possible, because there are still a lot of folks who are paying extra for materials, and we want to not hinder development in any way, shape, or form. But we are very low on certain applications, and others we're not too far out. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Haley, for the report. I appreciate the information. One thing that I would like, if it's possible, when you're looking at, because I'm not against looking at this, and I'm open to receiving your recommendations, but one additional angle that I would like to be considered is I'm not so concerned how we compare to our neighbors, because I don't really see this as a market-driven thing necessarily. I mean, certainly I don't think we want to be exorbitant, but I think the main focus should be what is the cost to the municipality to offer the service. You know, like what is the time? What's the typical cost to us to actually offer the service, versus necessarily what other townships are charging. The other thing that's on my mind is, as I look at some of these items, some of them, again, you're the expert. Some of them are more what developers are coming in, folks who are building, for a business. And then there's some processes that appear, to be more sort of your quote unquote regular resident who's, might be adding a shed or that sort of thing. And again, to those, like on the developer side, I feel like most definitely they should be paying for the cost of what the service is. And I guess with those, I'm more inclined to think being in line with our neighbors makes sense. But for the ones that are much more internal or more applicable to existing residents, existing properties, I think those, there's a certain element of what the folks are already paying for, I feel should cover that to a certain extent. So those I'm a little less inclined to see them increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks to Ann for the presentation. I'll agree with Deputy Mayor Warden and Councillor Jaworski that on most of their points there. Just a side note, would it be a big deal to, if we're going to review these, to look at our building permit fees at the same time? I don't know if there's a wide range of those. I think just they're more per square foot and this sort of thing. But maybe we should be doing everything that's supposed to be cost recovery at the same time. And I'm not sure maybe it's been done just recently for all I know, but I'm just interested what they are. I do like the idea of waiting till the end of the year, and I would like to know kind of what work's involved. If, because if we're supposed to be cost recovery, I hate to charge $1,000 if we're only putting a couple hours into it, but along those lines, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Haley.
I do have a response to that, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Good point, Councillor Lang, on your comment regarding building permit fees. Building permit fees are done a little differently in terms of the legislation, but we do have a draft building bylaw that's prepared to come to council this spring. And part of that draft bylaw includes a schedule of fees. And so you'll have an opportunity to review those fees. The reason why I say it's done a little differently is under the Planning Act, we have the right to charge fees on a cost recovery basis. In the Building Code Act, you have the same opportunity as well. The difference in the Building Code Act is that we have to give 30 days notice. So there's a legislative process where in the Planning Act, I can come to you at any time, look at fees, it's council's decision. So that's why we're doing these independently, simply because of how the legislation works for both acts. But you will see that in the near future.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm having a hard time hearing you. It feels like sometimes your mic is picking you up and then other times it's better. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Is that you speaking to me or Joanne?
You, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I will let me know if that occurs again.
I've had the same, it's also for me. So it's not just you, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Okay. Somebody's coming to fix it, I think.
So just in closing, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, all of you, for your comments. What I understand the next steps for me to be would be work on determining what the actual costs are to process per application. so that you can do that analysis to understand where we're making too much revenue and maybe where we're not collecting enough revenue. I can certainly do that for all of the processes. That will not be difficult. And then I can also make some recommendations if you wish. And I understood you don't want to be the highest, but you don't want me to compare to Cornwall as well, which I understand. So leave that with me, and I'll come back in the near future with something that maybe you'll be wanting to consider. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. Thank you, Mrs. Haley, for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing your report at a later date. Okay, we'll move to staff reports. A modification of eScribe subscription agreement. Ms. McDonald, Kaylin, yep. She's just getting onto her computer. There she is.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, this is a request from council from our last meeting and my last act as deputy clerk, I guess, given the next report. But this is to add the eScribe YouTube functionality, so make playback of the videos a better experience for our residents and administration who are using them. And you can see in the report, the additional cost per year is approximately $2,000, with the implementation cost of $675 to be drawn from modernization funding.
Okay, thank you. This is a request from council. So any questions, Deputy Mayor Warden, then Councillor Jaworski.
Aside from the pictures that you included in the staff report, I'm actually happy that this is coming back, and I wanted to thank Councillor Jaworski for bringing this up. I think this is going to be an invaluable tool for our residents in the future once we get I mean, we're here in the digital age, and it's not going to go back. So I think this is 100% a great thing, and it's great that we can use it from our modernization fund. Thank you.
You're on mute, Deputy Mayor Warden. You went on mute.
Was I on mute the whole time?
No, just your last 10 words.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to thank, and I'm happy that we're able to use it out of the modernization fund as well. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Deputy Mayor Warden, and thank you for also supporting this. Thank you, Kaylin, for putting this together. I mean, this is one of the COVID silver linings, I think. And I think, not only is this going to help the public, I think this will help staff, and I think it'll help us as well on council to be able to, go back and, review different files, much quicker. So I think this is great. Thank you for bringing this back.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 13-2021 be received and that the council approve the modification of service agreement to add eScribe's YouTube module at a cost of $2,625 to be drawn from the modernization fund. Hear the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. We'll move to number 2, appoint deputy clerk. Ms. Campbell.
Yes, good evening through you, Mr. Mayor. As you guys will recall, at the last council meeting, there was a report approved for some restructuring and reorganization. And one of the results of that report was the addition of a deputy clerk position. It was determined that we had an internal candidate who fit the criteria for that position, that being Shauna Beggs, who was formerly the Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator. Among other positions she's held previously in the municipal world, which are outlined in the report. So the bylaw before you tonight is simply a bylaw to formalize and appoint Ms. Beggs as the deputy clerk for the township of South Glengarry.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Campo. Any comments or questions? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say congratulations to Shauna.
Okay, thank you. This was a report that was brought to us at the last council meeting, so we're pretty much aware of it. So I do have a motion here, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 14-2021 be received and that bylaw 09-2021, being a bylaw to appoint Shauna Baggs as deputy clerk for the township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this first day of February 2021. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mrs. Kumpel. And then we'll move to number 3, appoint deputy treasurer, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll see from the staff report in January 18th, this is just a follow-up to that. You approved the deputy treasurer. I think we applauded her earlier, but we have the internal candidate being Kaylin. So she will be the one taking that position. This report says a little bit about her background, a little bit about what we'll get from the deputy treasurer, and then otherwise, yes, the position has been offered to Kaylin McDonald, and she has accepted the position, and this is for you to appoint her as deputy treasurer.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Jaworski, I was waiting.
Well, I was thinking maybe someone else would want to, but I'd be remiss in not also congratulating Caitlin in this new role. And I look forward to all the great things that will be coming out of that at the finance department now with this extra resources. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. When your comments with Mrs. Baggs and Mrs. McDonald, you speak on behalf of all the council, so thank you. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 15-2021 be received and that bylaw 10-2021, being a bylaw to appoint Kaylin McDonald as deputy treasurer for the township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this first day of February 2021. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we'll move to number 4, capacity allocation, water and wastewater. We have Mr. McDonald and Mr. Seguin, I believe. So whoever wants to go ahead first.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'll start the discussion here, and Mr. Seguin can jump in with additional information as he sees fit. This is an annual report we provide to council as per the bylaw for allocation of capacity in our water and wastewater systems in Lancaster and Glenwalter. And I'm very pleased to bring this report to you, although we still are in a position where our capacity in Glenwalter for wastewater is essentially at 0, given the pre-approved connections that are on the spreadsheet at the current time, being for the Purcell subdivision for Place Saint Laurent, for the lots on Glenwalter Park Road, and those amount to 73 lots. So with those pre-approved connections that aren't on the system as of yet, we are over our capacity by 7 connections. That being said, the plant is operating very well, and we have not had any issues with the quality of our effluent or being able to handle those flows. What I can tell you, though, that I think is very good news is that in 2020, our wastewater flows reduced from what they were in 2019 at close to the rated capacity of 787 down to 660. So we had an improvement by 100 cubic meters on the average over the year. And I wish to congratulate Mr. Seguin and his staff. They took the initiative to put in rain scepters, did the research on these units. They're in our manholes, our wastewater manholes, and they protect the manhole from infiltration of surface water, and we feel that has had a significant impact on our wastewater flows. So we feel that that has certainly had some benefit to us. We also know that with new growth, typically those systems are fairly tight, and where we have some leaks and infrastructure issues are typically in the older parts of the system. In the water side of note in 2020 is we did have a significant increase in water usage, and we believe that that is directly related to people being at home, washing their cars. We probably have more pools in South Glengarry than we did in the past, and people are just consuming more water. So we'll monitor that. Again, it's not a big concern because we have sufficient capacity, but we did note that as a trend. And in Lancaster, I wish to bring forward, I had a question from Councillor Jaworski a little later on in the day today about some discrepancies in the numbers. And Councillor Jaworski is very keen, has a very keen eye. And I did quickly look at our numbers in 2019 and 2018 and found that what we were using as a comparative was our maximum flow, where we should have been using average flow. At the end of the day, we have lots of capacity, but it did, there was a bit of a disconnect. We were in at around 700 connections in 2018 and 2019. We dropped down to about 400. And it was just simply the number we were using. So on a go forward basis, we'll need to ensure that we use the average number on a go forward basis. So the available capacity is here, and as per the report, it is recommended that the capacity be approved. We understand that there is essentially zero capacity for further connections in Glen Walter. But as of July 1st this year, there was an agreement for 42 connections in a subdivision, and that agreement had a condition that if the infrastructure was not in place by July 1st of 2021, that the agreement would become null and void. At this point, it seems very unlikely that that will occur, and those 42 lots will come back into the system, which will, as of July 1st, our connections available would be 35 connections, as opposed to the -7 you have now. So I suggest that Mr. Sagan monitor that, and perhaps we can revise the report mid-year this year, which isn't common, but perhaps based on this agreement and the contract conditions, that it might be worthwhile to bring that back at that time. So I have provided the report and the spreadsheets. If there's any questions or Mr. Sagan wishes to add anything, we're ready to answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Sagan, is there anything you wanted to add before I go to questions from the council?
Yes, as Johan stated, I can bring forward to council midsummer another revised report on this matter for the connections. So it's not typically our new subdivisions that tend to leak the water into the manholes. It's the old parts that we definitely see an issue with. So no issue moving forward with new construction.
Thank you. The only question I have at this point in time, the Purcell Road subdivision, their agreement is you said is done in July 2021. Did we not extend that agreement at one point, or was that their total agreement?
The total agreement through you, Mr. Mayor, it was a 10-year agreement that was done in 2016 with this 5-year condition that the infrastructure had to be in place for the approval to carry forward. So as of July 1st, that agreement is null and void unless council wishes to reconsider, renegotiate. Those are decisions the council will have to make at the time based on where this subdivision is at the present time, and also understanding that there are other developments that are waiting in the wings that are ready to go as well.
I just want to make sure that they have enough time so that they're notified that as of July 1st or the end of July, that their 35 connections, 42 connections will be pulled away from that subdivision, if that's the wishes of council at the time. I know they have the property up for sale, so I presume it's not certainly with me or my company, it's from a company out of Toronto, I believe, but I presume that in their listing agreement, it probably shows a plan of subdivision with water and sewer connections, so they will probably have to change that, but I just want to make sure that they have the opportunity of knowing that they are about to lose those connections, and they may request to come to council to ask for an extension at that point, which is their prerogative, and it's council's decision at that point to decide if we want to give the extension or if we want to reduce the number of connections or remove them completely. So I just want to make sure that they are aware of that, and maybe it's not our role to make sure that they're aware of it because they do know they have a 5-year plan, but
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, we've been in communication with the property owner fairly frequently over the past 2 years, and we've made them very much aware of that condition in the agreement.
okay. And I think you're right in regards. I don't think we're going to see a shovel on the ground this spring. So, I mean, if they request presentation to council and before July 1st, that's their choice and prerogative to do so. And council has a decision to make at that point. So I'll open it up to questions. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your report. I'm very impressed with the work that's been done because, as we have heard in the past, there's been a lot of infiltration. So congratulations on getting those numbers down. And I actually was surprised because of COVID that so you've done a really good job. If the water consumption is way up and your sewer is down, that's very impressive because the numbers were the other way around. So congratulations, and keep the good work. Keep up the good work. And I'm also, we've given them ample time to come forward with a plan. I think there's other areas that want to continue to develop. So I think the clock is ticking in regards to that agreement. But and I would also appreciate if it doesn't come to fruition, that we do revise this report as soon as possible. Just so that we have the current accurate numbers, as soon as possible. We're out of the red. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Dworsky and then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for clarifying very quickly the issue of the max flows versus the average flows. So that was very helpful. Thank you. And I'm glad it was easy to clarify for the future. I wanted to also echo what Deputy Mayor Warden said with regards to the work from the water department in reducing infiltration. I mean, it's actually, we were at almost 100% of the plant's capacity, and you reduce that like that, the 102 represents like 13% of the plant. So that's actually really, really, really amazing. So I just wanted to emphasize that again, because the fact that you took that initiative, it's a huge benefit to the township. And also, I would be in favor of you updating this, as soon as the conditions change, so that because we're so close to capacity, to have the most up-to-date information as possible. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, feel free to cut me off if I'm choppy by any means. I see my internet's weak. I just wanted to agree with Councillor Jaworski. Thank you, gentlemen, for the report, but I would also appreciate an updated version during the summer once we have a better idea where this is going, just everything sorted out. I was very impressed to see the wastewater flows down as well, just given that a lot of people are working from home, and I think a lot of Glen Walter probably does go to work, whether outside of Glen Walter or into the city of Cornwall. So I think that's should be probably higher, but with those with the updates, it looks great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry receive and file staff report 16-2021, being a report which details available capacity allocation of the Glen Walter and Lancaster water and wastewater systems, and furthermore that the capacity available be approved as the annual development allocation for 2021. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move to number 5, Water and Sewage Planet Annual Report. Mr. Seguin.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So this report, bringing forward the 6 annual reports for all the water and wastewater treatment plants for the Township of South Glengarry. Each year we bring forward the annual reports for each facility for your review and questioning. prior to submitting to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. So to move forward, it kind of goes hand in hand with the last report for the allocations, just showing the annual flows and where we are in compliance and how close we are to our compliance. So in Glen Walter, we do see a decrease in the wastewater, which in hand goes with the increase potential lots in the future. But we also did see an increase in the water treatment. I would look at the hot summer and COVID having a big effect on this. Overall, we didn't see it come back to the plant as much. So definitely, we sent out more water than we did in previous years by about 15%. So you will see that in the annual report. For Lancaster, it was more or less just a typical year for flows. Nothing too dramatically changed there. And for Redwood, we did see a large increase, especially this summer. Green Valley, we were pretty steady for the wastewater flows as previous years. When it comes down to the annual report for Green Valley, that's the only report where we did not meet 100% compliance for our final effluent. We were high in TSS, which is total suspended solids. The solids were averaged out at about 38 milligrams per liter. We have a compliance of 25 through the federal government, and through our C of A, we have 30. So we did exceed that, but that comes down to the type of weather we had during our discharge season. So on windy days when we're sampling, it tends to stir up the lagoons a little bit more, and the ministry was aware of it at that time, and they said to keep discharging at our constant rate as per our C of A. So if you have any questions, I will leave these reports with you for the next 2 weeks, and I can follow up in 2 weeks' time on February 16th at the next council meeting.
Your report, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, I just want to briefly add to that. The Green Valley situation is one that has been an occurrence in past years with the suspended solids, and it is partially or maybe greatly impacted by the geese population in that area in the spring, and that creates us issues with our suspended solids. So we understand that it's kind of a frequent occurrence, but I wanted to point out that Mr. Sagan and his staff have done a wonderful job in maintaining compliance in our water and wastewater plants. We have yet to receive our 2020 ministry inspection reports, again, delayed due to COVID, but the inspections have all taken place, and the inspectors advised Mr. Sagan that there didn't appear to be any issues of compliance with the operations of the plant. And I really want to congratulate him. And in particular, this has historically been a well-managed water and wastewater system, but Mr. Sagan is relatively new to the position. He's our senior operator at a pretty young age, and he has a staff of very young operators. So I compliment him on taking the initiative in doing what he's doing in the water and wastewater plants with, I guess, no disrespect, but with a kind of a rookie staff, and working with them and showing them the kind of the ropes in the system, and making sure that their training is kept up to speed, their certifications are kept up to the qualifications that are required. So I'm really pleased that Mr. Sagan is continuing to improve the operations here, and he's doing a wonderful job. And council should be very proud of him and his staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for those kind words to Mr. Sagan, and we echo everything that you said without repeating it over. So thank you, Mr. Sagan, for everything you do in regards to the water and sewer, and also your staff. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I do have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam Antonell. Be resolved that staff report 17-2021 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry receive the 2020 annual reports for the Redwood Estates, Lancaster and Glen Walter water treatment plants, and the Lancaster, Green Valley, and Glen Walter sewage treatment plants. And furthermore, that the staff report to approve the report be prepared for the February 16th, 2021 council meeting. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Seguin. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And we'll move to number 6, road widening dedication, Second Line Road. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a road widening on Second Concession, north of County Road 25, between County Road 25 and Concession 10. And it's a condition of severance for road widening that we have secured. The survey has been completed. The property has been transferred to the municipality. And this is the bylaw to dedicate those portions to bring the road allowance there to 66-foot or 20-meter standard.
Okay, thank you. This is a standard road dedication we're requesting. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, Mr. McDonald, you said second concession, but you meant second line, correct?
Yes, my apologies through you, Mr. Mayor. You are correct, Second Line Road.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 18-2021 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry pass bylaw 08-2021, being a bylaw to dedicate parts 3 of registered plan 14R-6546, part of lot 24 in the former Township of Lancaster, pin number 67244-0052, as public highway, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this first day of February 2021. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Okay, we'll go to other business. So the items that were pulled from information purposes only. Sorry. Yep. And number 1 is the holiday shopping event recap. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to give Ms. Baggs the opportunity to speak to the report, but I also wanted to thank her for organizing this event. So I was hoping we could hear a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Baggs, are you prepared to speak on the holiday shopping event?
If she's not, it's okay. It's more to highlight the good things that were done.
On by the computer, but she's also on her phone, so I'm not sure if there's an issue, but we'll go to the next one. Kelly's going to try and get a hold of her, and then we'll come back to yours in a moment, Councillor. Letter from the Glengarry Fencible Trust, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention the Glengarry Fencibles and thank them for the work that they're doing in the community. It's always nice when we receive a letter requesting to, not have the extra money. I think that it shows they're very well organized, and anybody that's driven by that location can see the work that's being done, and it's being transformed into a beautiful historic building. I'm very fortunate that we have this group. Historic buildings they're a tough business these days, and I just want to thank that organization for really working really hard to keep it going, and we all know it's tough times out there for a lot of businesses and stuff. So I just thought that they needed recognition for requesting the money and then realizing they didn't need it and saying we did. So I thought they deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Well said. Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to echo what Deputy Mayor Warden said. I grew up going to school right next to that building, and it's been an incredible transformation. Also like to see when not-for-profit groups come to us for money and then realize they don't need it and kindly send us a letter saying that they don't, instead of taking it anyways. I think it'd be nice if we sent them a letter back just to extend an invitation if they would have time to either present to us or even just send us some updated pictures since last year when they last came to us. Would be great.
Good point, Councilor McDonnell. I'll ask Madam Clerk to be in touch with them at some point to see if they want to do a presentation for updates in regards to where they stand, or they can send information in if they prefer that also. Thank you, Councilor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, echoing what Councilor McDonnell and Deputy Mayor Warden have said. I'd like to also say congratulations to them, to the Fencibles, for obviously continuing very positive fundraising, and also thanks to the whoever the donor was in the end who was covering some of those additional costs. So congratulations and thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think Mrs. Baggs is back on. So Ms. Baggs, if you wanted to talk briefly about the holiday shopping event.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Sorry, everyone. Having technical difficulties, and I actually have cable internet, so I don't know what's going on, but it's not working very well tonight. Well, thank you for Councilor Jaworski for bringing my memo forward. The program, the holiday shopping event, was a really big success. We had lots of great feedback. And the nice thing about doing programs that are specific to social channels and online is that they're really measurable. So we can really see the success, and we can find where people are coming from and how many people, exactly how many people actually tuned in. And we can kind of base our measurements on real numbers instead of just guessing. So we had two different measurements that we were able to tell for sure that we had just over 5,000 different views of the various shopping experiences done by our local businesses. So that was a huge success. A couple of different businesses had over 1,000 different views, independent views to watch their interview and entice customers to come into their store and make a good impression. And some of those interviews actually turned into sales. So not only were we able to see the numbers that tuned in online, and we could track it that way, but we can hear from the actual independent business owners that their customers then came in and they referred back to their interview and they purchased things that they talked about on their interview. So they were able to trace themselves, and so it was a win-win for both from a municipal standpoint and for a business standpoint as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Baggs. It seemed to be a great turnout, like you said. So we compliment, we thank the businesses that got involved, and we thank the company that was involved in regards to doing the interviews. I had an opportunity to speak at the beginning, and it seemed like it went extremely well over the period of time. So thank you for that. Councilor Jaworski, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to. It was great to hear the additional details from Mrs. Baggs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Baggs. Number 4 is a letter regarding automatic speed enforcement, Township of Southwest Oxford. Councilor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is, I mean, at a high level, this is, a municipality asking for more control or more authority to, enact a program, that they see beneficial in their area. And I think, generally speaking, we should be trying to support that, where, townships are trying to do things that they see as beneficial for their own community. And certainly when it comes to the issue of speeding, we hear that here, and we hear that in lots of other communities, smaller communities across Ontario, particularly rural ones, where we don't necessarily have the enforcement presence, to be, constant, different areas, and, they're able to do targeted enforcement, but then generally the targeted enforcement goes away, and then situations go back to what they were. So I think if a community thinks that using, this automated speed enforcement is the right way for them to go in terms of getting the results that they need at in what is, actually a cost-effective manner, because trying to increase policing is actually extremely expensive. So I think they should have the authority to do that. And I was hoping that council would also support that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm not so sure myself. I know photo radar is liked by the people collecting the money, not very liked by the people paying the money. When the province tried it quite a few years back, I know it didn't go over very well, and a lot of people, they're so impartial, it's just, if you're at the number that they set, you're paying the fine. Where if you pulled over by a police officer, you've got a little bit of leeway, possibly you're dealing with another human being. People seem to like it a lot better that way. So I'm not against telling townships what they should be able to do or not do, but not keen on photo radar myself. Thanks.
Comments, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to side with Councillor Lang tonight, especially this morning. I got an email. I got one myself in Quebec, and they're very unfortunate emails when you get them. I don't think it's very fair at all. I just think you end up getting a culture where people are slowing down in certain spots because they know there's a camera or it's marked with a sign. So I don't see the benefit to it really myself. It's just a money grab for $60.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell, if you would have obeyed the law, you wouldn't have that email this morning. Deputy Mayor Warden.
You, Mr. Mayor. I'll second. I'll side with Councillor Jaworski. I myself have received 2 of the tickets, and it's a reminder that you should be going the speed limit. I get a lot of complaints from the residents of Lancaster that the transports are traveling too fast. So I'm okay with supporting the motion, and I agree with the concept that if a community wants to try and do what it thinks is best for its community, I think we should support that, even though it's a hot button topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Jaworski will ask for that resolution to come back at the February 16th meeting, and then we'll take a vote at that time in regards to if we support the municipality of Southwest Oxford. So Madam Clerk, if you could bring that back as a resolution to the next meeting, thank you. And number 6 is the memo partner county planning study, natural heritage system, South Nation conservation. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The South Nation is partnering, I guess, with counties of SDNG and Prescott Russell, and looking to kind of update the natural heritage system, which is going to definitely affect South Glengarry. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of it. I'm sure people on council are, but not sure if everybody in the township is. I definitely have been getting calls from farmers voicing some concern because the land that's going to be affected here is obviously mostly going to be owned by private individuals and mostly farmers. So they're just wondering what's going on. So I've recommended to most of them that if they're able to, February 9th at 7 p.m. there's going to be a virtual meeting kind of giving an update. So encouraging people to get on, sign up to that. And if you want South Nation's website right now, they do show maps of where they're proposed, the connecting areas that would connect these natural heritage areas are. Quite a bit of South Glengarry has areas. If you give an example from Ray Road to Somerstown Road, County Road 27, south of the 401, likely about 2/3 or 3/4 of that is covered by that connection system there. So it will have some effect. They're claiming it shouldn't affect farms very much, but it will definitely affect Miss Haley's job there as far as planning and this sort of thing. And I mean, who knows in the future what these could affect. If there was a township that had something like what North Glengarry is proposing with a tree canopy bylaw and a permit system, then I definitely think it would affect that as well. That if you were applying for a permit in one of those areas, it would definitely have to be looked at by the Conservation Authority before you could get approval, and maybe even the planning department. So just make sure people are aware of it and tune into the meeting on February 9th. and find out what it's all about. Go on to South Nation's website and you can get further information before the meeting. Thanks.
I'm going to go to Joanne in a second, but Councillor Lang, is that where we get into the meeting, is through the South Nation website?
I'm assuming. I haven't tried to find the login yet. I just went on their site and read their frequently asked questions and looked at the maps and so forth, but I'm hopeful that it's not going to be too difficult to get on. And maybe you have to contact them if you want on. I'm not 100% sure on that.
You can look into that through you with the clerk, and maybe if you do find a login site, maybe between you and Madam Clerk can share that with the rest of the council if that's possible. And I'll go to Mrs. Haley for any comments. I see you're on, so I presume you had some comments there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Lang provided an excellent summary. I just want to take it one step further to make sure you're aware. As you indicated, Councillor Lang, the United Counties has initiated this process, but this will result in an official plan amendment. So what is determined as part of the Natural Heritage System would mean that our planning documents would be amended and included in there. So they will become part of our policies to move forward with all planning applications. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We'll look for that login site later throughout the week, as it is next Tuesday. So, okay, there was nothing further that was pulled out. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approves the items listed as committee reports and for information purposes only. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we'll go right into unfinished business. Docs on township property, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've pretty much taken this as far as we can go. The sales have been completed. We will have to review the options for the two remaining parcels, one across from the Esso, formerly the Stinson. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. It'll just be incorporated into what we are currently using as parkland. And the other lot, we'll have to look at our options. There's one of the lots that we have not been able to sell, and we need to look at our options for that in the spring.
Okay, thank you. When that report comes back, and we have a discussion in regards to the dock, I guess that's located across from the Esso gas station at the same time.
That's yes, Mr. Mills and myself and Mr. Robertson have had some preliminary discussions on our plans for that as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to that report. Number 2 is fire protection ponds.
Yes, just by update, I've mentioned before the pond on Richmond Road is under an agreement. We will continue to honor the terms and conditions of that agreement as we move forward. So there's no changes that will be made to that. I have been in touch and have spoken with both the property owners connected to the pond on Middle Street off of Hay Road, and both the property owners are in favor and receptive to formalizing an agreement. We currently do charge them a subsidy on their tax bills for the provision of the water for their sprinkler systems. We just want to make sure that we are recovering our costs, and that will include some capital component as well. So we're working towards developing an agreement on that now, and both property owners are receptive to reviewing and discussing an agreement.
Okay, thank you. And the municipal servicing from the City of Cornwall.
We're awaiting some responses. Roads have gone out to the property owners on Boundary Road to ask for them to contact the municipality to have some discussions on the potential costs for the project, and then we'll determine the next steps based on their responses.
Okay, thank you. I know Councillor Lang asked for the reports to come to members of council, but I apologize if I missed that, but have we received that?
The letters?
Yeah, just
copy of the letters and the report?
Well, yeah, the report in regards to what the numbers were for each one of those properties, that if we were contacted, that we'd have that information.
Okay. My apologies. I thought I had sent that out, but I'll double check and make sure that it gets to council.
I don't remember seeing it, but I don't know if other members of council received it.
It's quite possible that it didn't. I didn't send it to council. So
okay, this would be nice
make
to
sure that that's done.
Okay, if we just to have those numbers, that if we do get contacted by one, that we do have numbers in front of us to further explain, I guess, in regards to that, but we'll certainly make sure that they do get in touch with the municipality to make sure that they have that further discussion. Okay, private roads development document.
Yeah, the document's been read first and second time, the bylaw, and will be brought back on the 16th. So if there's any comments on the document, I haven't received any as of yet, but if there are any comments, we'll be bringing it forward on the 16th for third and final reading.
So if there's any comments from council, it should be in by Friday of this week.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yep, thank you. And LED streetlights, Glen Walter.
Yeah, we're just waiting to firm a date to meet with Cornell Electric on our proposal for the project, and that will then determine the next steps on that project as well. We have heard from Cornell Electric, and they are looking at their 2021 program, and we're hoping that we can have this conversion project as part of that.
Thank you. We'll wait to hear from that one. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I'll go over to Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's water rates and water bill design. Water rates, there's a staff report already on the draft agenda for February 16th. And I have a mock-up in Excel to show you what I'll be requesting because from VADM, because I'd hate to spend a bunch of money because the last one was not adequate. So with this one, I'm going to show you it. And if that's a good enough example of what you want from VADM, then I can say VADM make this. And they should be able to, based on, like, if you can do it in Excel, you should be able to do it in a program. And you asked me to contact local municipalities. One said yes, one said tentative, and another said no in terms of potentially sharing the cost of making a better bill. So that's where we are. You'll see it next meeting. It's on the draft agenda as well.
Okay, thank you. We look forward to that. I know Deputy Mayor Warden certainly looks forward to that because it's been on the agenda for a while. All right, thanks very much. And if there's nothing else, I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 8:22 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239 of the Municipal Act SO 2001. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. A verbal update from CEO Mr. Mills, and advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose. Advice from the solicitor. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. Thank you to all the staff and the general public for attending this evening. Enjoy the rest of your week.